You've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange calm that settled over your heart when you weren't looking. Not the calm of giving up, but the calm of knowing. Something inside you stopped fighting, stopped wondering if you were crazy, stopped questioning whether the connection was real. You didn't decide this shift. It arrived, like a whisper that grew louder until it became the only voice you could hear. Your soul saying, "He's changing." You can't see it. You can't prove it. But you know, the way you know your own heartbeat. The way you know when a storm is coming before the sky turns dark. You feel him healing in the silence, and something ancient inside you recognizes this moment. This is not the end of waiting. This is the beginning of arrival. There's a weight lifting that you didn't realize you were carrying. You've stopped checking for signs with desperation. You've stopped analyzing every synchronicity like it's a puzzle you need to solve. Instead, you're breathing deeper, sleeping better, smiling at nothing, because your body knows what your mind is still catching up to. He is doing the work, in the quiet, in the unseen, in the sacred space where transformation doesn't need witnesses. And your soul is responding to his healing like a flower turning toward light. You're not imagining this peace. You're not fooling yourself with hope. This is resonance. This is the energetic confirmation that everything you've been holding space for is finally taking root in him. The masculine is healing in silence, and your union is closer than you think. If you felt this unexplainable peace mixed with anticipation, I want you to know you're not alone. Drop a comment below and share what shift you've noticed in your own energy lately. Or simply type, "I trust the divine timing of my union," to claim this frequency. And if these messages speak to your soul, subscribe so you never miss the guidance that's meant for you. There comes a stage in the twin flame journey when the chaos quiets, when the push and pull softens, when the intensity that once consumed every waking moment begins to transform into something steadier, something deeper. You might have noticed that you're no longer obsessively thinking about him. You're no longer replaying conversations or dissecting his silence. You're no longer trying to decode every dream or synchronicity like your life depends on it. Instead, you're just living, breathing, being. And in that space of simply existing without the constant mental noise, you've started to feel something new. A quiet certainty, a gentle knowing, a sense that while you've been healing and choosing yourself, he has been doing the same. Not because you forced it, not because you manifested it through desperate rituals, but because his soul reached a point where healing was no longer optional. It became inevitable. This is not because you finally let go and stopped caring. This is not because you moved on or gave up. This is because you shifted your focus from his journey to your own. And in that shift, everything changed. The energy between you, the frequency you were holding, the space you were creating, it all transformed. You stopped being the chaser pouring energy into a void. You became the embodied feminine, standing in her own light, no longer dimming herself to make space for his fear. And that shift, that reclamation of your sovereignty, sent a ripple through the entire connection. He felt it, even if he couldn't name it, even if he didn't consciously understand what changed. His soul registered the moment you stopped waiting for him and started living for yourself. Have you noticed how differently you feel now compared to months ago? There was a time when his silence felt like abandonment, when every day without contact felt like evidence that you were wrong about the connection, when his distance triggered every wound you carried about not being enough. But now, his silence feels different. It doesn't ache the same way. It doesn't send you spiraling into doubt. Instead, it feels like space. Sacred space. The kind of space that allows transformation to happen without interference. You've learned, through your own healing, that silence is not always rejection. Sometimes silence is the cocoon. Sometimes distance is the classroom. Sometimes separation is the sacred container where both souls do the work they couldn't do together. And here's the truth. While you've been doing your inner work, facing your shadows, healing your wounds, and choosing yourself over and over again, he has been in his own process. A process that looks different from yours, but is equally profound. The masculine heals differently than the feminine. Where you process through feeling, through crying, through talking, through releasing, he processes through silence, through withdrawal, through an internal dismantling that happens so deep within him that even he doesn't fully understand what's occurring. He's not ignoring the connection. He's not avoiding you. He's not moving on. He's breaking, in the most necessary way. The walls he built are crumbling. The armor he wore is becoming too heavy. The identity he constructed to survive in a world that taught him to suppress his emotions is no longer sustainable. And in the quiet of his own solitude, he is finally meeting himself. Deep inside, he knows the connection is real. He's always known. But knowing and accepting are two different things. For months, maybe years, he's been running from what he feels because what he feels is too big, too overwhelming, too threatening to the carefully controlled life he built. The divine feminine energy doesn't just invite him into love, it invites him into his own depths, into his own vulnerability, into his own truth. And that terrifies the parts of him that were conditioned to equate emotion with weakness. So he ran, not from you, from himself, from the parts of himself that your presence awakened, the soft parts, the feeling parts, the parts that remember what it means to be fully human, fully alive, fully open. But something shifts when a man runs long enough. Eventually, he gets tired. Not tired of you, tired of running. Tired of the internal war between what he feels and what he thinks he's supposed to feel. Tired of denying a truth that keeps showing up in his dreams, his thoughts, his quiet moments. Tired of pretending that disconnecting from you means he's free, when really it just means he's alone. And in that exhaustion, a doorway opens. A doorway to healing, to honesty, to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, surrendering to the connection isn't weakness. Maybe it's the bravest thing he could do. This is where he is now, in the silence, in the space between who he was and who he's becoming. He's not reaching out because he doesn't have the words yet. He's not making grand gestures because he's still learning how to be honest with himself, let alone with you. But he is healing, in ways you cannot see but can absolutely feel. His energy is shifting, softening, opening. The defenses that once felt impenetrable are developing cracks. The fear that once governed his every decision is losing its grip. The wounds that convinced him he wasn't worthy of deep love are beginning to close. And all of this is happening in the quiet. in the sacred silence where the soul does its deepest work. Have you felt it? The way his energy feels different now. Not distant, but deep. Not cold, but contemplative. Not absent, but present in a new way. You might feel him in your meditations, in your dreams, in sudden waves of warmth that wash over you for no reason, in moments of inexplicable peace that feel like a message from his soul to yours saying, "I'm still here. I'm still connected. I'm just finally doing what I need to do." These are not coincidences. These are confirmations. His healing is creating energetic shifts that you're picking up on because you are connected at a level that transcends physical proximity. When he heals, you feel it. When he softens, you sense it. When he takes a step toward his own truth, your soul celebrates even if your mind doesn't understand why. The masculine's healing journey is not linear. It's not neat. It doesn't follow a timeline you can predict or control, but it is happening. And one of the most profound aspects of his healing is that he's finally confronting the conditioning that kept him locked in patterns of emotional avoidance. He's starting to see how he was taught to equate vulnerability with danger, how he learned to shut down instead of open up, how he built an entire identity around being strong, being in control, being the one who doesn't need anyone. And he's realizing that this identity, while it kept him safe, also kept him alone, kept him disconnected, kept him from experiencing the depth of love and connection his soul has always craved. This realization doesn't come easy. It comes with grief. Grief for the years he spent hiding. Grief for the connections he sabotaged. Grief for the version of himself he's leaving behind. He's mourning the man he thought he had to be, while simultaneously birthing the man he's always been underneath the armor. And this process, this death and rebirth, is sacred. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be bypassed. It must unfold in its own time, in its own way. And the most loving thing you can do, the most powerful thing you can do, is let him have this process without interference, without trying to save him, without trying to speed it up, without making his healing about you, because here's the sacred paradox. His healing is not about you, but it is for you, for the connection, for the union that cannot exist between two people who are not whole within themselves. He's not healing so that he can come back and complete you. He's healing so that he can meet you as an equal, as a sovereign being, as a man who has faced his shadows and integrated his wounds and chosen love not from a place of need, but from a place of wholeness. This is what you've been waiting for, not for him to return as the same man who left, but for him to return as the man who has finally found himself. And while he heals in silence, you are being called into your own deepening. This phase is not just about his transformation. It's about yours. It's about you continuing to choose yourself, continuing to honor your own healing, continuing to build a life that is full and rich and meaningful whether he's in it or not. Because the truth is, union does not complete you. Union reflects the completion you've already found within yourself. The moment you stop needing him to validate the connection validates itself. The moment you stop waiting for him to make you whole, you realize you've been whole all along. And that realization, that embodiment, is what shifts everything. You are not just the doorway to his healing. You are the temple, and the temple does not chase. the temple does not beg. The temple does not diminish itself to make space for someone else's fear. The temple stands, rooted, radiant, unwavering in its truth. And the masculine, when he is ready, when he has done his work, when he is healed enough to hold the frequency of the sacred, will find his way back to the temple, not because you waited by the door, but because you became so fully yourself that your light was impossible to ignore. This is the shift that's happening right now. You're stepping into your temple, and he's healing in the silence. Both of you are being prepared for a reunion that is not based on wounding, on need, on the desperate grasping that characterized earlier phases of the journey. This reunion will be different. It will be conscious, intentional, rooted in mutual respect and sovereignty. It will be a meeting of two whole people who choose each other not because they need each other, but because they recognize each other, because their souls remember the contract, the mission, the love that brought them together in the first place. But something shifts when the feminine fully embodies her sovereignty, when she stops looking outside herself for validation, when she stops making his healing her responsibility, when she stops sacrificing her own needs to accommodate his fear, when she stands in her truth and says, "I am worthy of a love that meets me fully. I am worthy of a partner who has done his work. I am worthy of a union that honors both of us." This declaration, this claiming of her worth, sends a shockwave through the entire energetic field of the connection, because the feminine is the frequency holder. She sets the tone. She establishes the standard. And when she raises her standard, the masculine must rise to meet it or release himself from the connection entirely. And here's what's really happening. He's rising. In the silence, in the solitude, in the sacred space of his own healing, he is rising. He is confronting the parts of himself that are not aligned with the love he truly desires. He is releasing the patterns that kept him small. He is stepping into a version of himself that can hold the depth, the intensity, the sacredness of the connection without running, without shutting down, without reverting to old coping mechanisms. This is not a small shift. This is a complete recalibration of his entire being. And it takes time. It takes silence. It takes the kind of inner work that cannot be witnessed or applauded or validated by anyone else. It must be done alone, in the dark, in the void, in the space between who he was and who he is becoming. You might have noticed signs of this shift. Synchronicities increasing, dreams becoming more vivid, a sense of his presence even when he's physically absent. These are not your imagination. These are breadcrumbs from the universe letting you know that the connection is still alive, still active, still moving toward union. His soul is reaching out even when his ego is still silent. His higher self is communicating with yours even when his human self is still processing. And this communication, this energetic dialogue, is preparing both of you for what comes next, for the moment when the silence breaks, when the healing has progressed enough, when both of you are ready to step into the union that has always been written for you. The masculine is learning something profound in his silence. He's learning that love is not a threat, that vulnerability is not weakness, that opening his heart does not mean losing himself. He's learning that the feminine is not trying to trap him or control him or take away his freedom. She is offering him the greatest gift he could receive, the gift of being fully seen, fully accepted, fully loved, not for the mask he wears, but for the truth underneath. And this realization is slowly, gently, powerfully dismantling every defense he ever built. Because deep down, beneath all the conditioning and fear and wounding, what he wants most is to be known, to be met, to be loved for who he truly is, not who he pretends to be. And when a man reaches this realization, when he understands that the connection is not a prison but a homecoming, everything changes. His energy shifts from resistance to receptivity, from fear to curiosity, from running to returning. He starts to remember why he was drawn to you in the first place, not just the physical attraction, but the soul recognition, the sense that you see him in a way no one else ever has. The feeling that with you, he doesn't have to perform or pretend. He can just be. And that permission to be fully himself, that safety to show up as he truly is the most intoxicating thing he's ever experienced. It's also the most terrifying, because it requires him to drop the armor, to let you in, to trust that you won't use his vulnerability against him. This is why his healing takes time. He's not just healing from this lifetime, from the wounds inflicted in this current incarnation, from the heartbreaks and disappointments and traumas that have shaped him in these years. You've known him, or even in the decades before you met. No, his healing runs far deeper than that. He's healing from generations upon generations of conditioning, from a lineage of men who were taught to suppress their emotions rather than express them, to control their environment rather than flow with it, to dominate rather than to feel, to maintain walls rather than to connect, to hold rigid rather than to surrender. This conditioning didn't start with his father or even his grandfather. It goes back centuries, woven into the very fabric of what society has told men they must be in order to be valuable, in order to be worthy, in order to be considered strong. He's breaking ancestral patterns that have been passed down like inherited heirlooms. Except these heirlooms are chains rather than treasures. He's rewriting the masculine blueprint that has been etched into his cellular memory, into his DNA, into the very way he was taught to move through the world from the moment he was told that boys don't cry, that men don't show weakness, that vulnerability is something to be ashamed of rather than celebrated. He's becoming the man his father couldn't be because his father was trapped in the same patterns, repeating the same cycles. He's becoming the man his grandfather couldn't be because his grandfather was, even more deeply entrenched in the programming of his time. He's becoming the man that the men in his lineage didn't know how to be because they were never given permission, never shown the way, never told that there was another option beyond the armor they wore so convincingly that they eventually forgot they were wearing it at all. And this work, this sacred reclamation of the healthy masculine, is not just personal. It's not just about him becoming a better partner for you or a more evolved version of himself. It's collective, it's archetypal, it's contributing to a shift in consciousness that is happening across the entire planet right now. Every step he takes toward healing, every moment he chooses to feel instead of numb, every time he allows himself to be vulnerable instead of defended, contributes to the healing of the masculine as a whole. He is part of a wave of men who are waking up, who are questioning the old paradigms, who are brave enough to do the inner work even when it's terrifying, even when it means facing parts of themselves they've kept hidden for lifetimes. And you, by holding space for his process without trying to fix or save or rush him, without making his healing about your timeline or your needs, without collapsing into victimhood when he needs to retreat into his cave, are contributing to this healing as well. You are holding a frequency that allows him to do this work. You are being the lighthouse while he navigates the storm within himself. But let's be absolutely clear here, because this is where so many divine feminines get lost in the fog of spiritual bypass and martyrdom. Holding space does not mean putting your life on hold. It does not mean sitting by the window like a character in a tragic novel, waiting for him to return while your own dreams gather dust and your own light dims. It does not mean sacrificing your joy, your growth, your expansion, your adventures, your purpose, your friendships, your creativity, your pleasure while you wait for him to catch up. That's not holding space. That's abandoning yourself. That's making him your source, instead of recognizing that source flows through you independently of him. Holding space means maintaining your own frequency at the highest level possible. It means living your own purpose with passion and dedication. It means honoring your own path as sacred and worthy of your full attention and devotion. And it means trusting with every fiber of your being that if this union is meant to be, it will happen when both of you are ready, when both of you have reached the level of consciousness required for this sacred partnership. Not when you're ready and he's not, which creates an imbalanced dynamic where you're pulling and he's resisting. Not when he's ready and you've moved on, having given up or genuinely outgrown the connection because you've evolved into a different frequency entirely. But when both of you have done enough of your own individual work, enough of your own shadow integration, enough of your own healing and releasing and upgrading, that you can meet each other as sovereign, whole, healed individuals who choose to walk together, not out of need, not out of lack, not out of the desperate grasping of two incomplete people trying to find completion in each other, but out of alignment, out of the recognition that your paths are meant to merge, because together you create something that serves not just yourselves, but the collective consciousness itself. This is the stage you're in now, the stage where both of you are being refined in separate crucibles, in your own individual fires of transformation, where both of you are shedding old skins that no longer fit the expanded versions of who you're becoming, where both of you are stepping into higher versions of yourselves, versions that are more authentic, more aligned, more capable of holding the frequency of unconditional love. And the silence between you, this space that sometimes feels like abandonment or rejection or evidence that the connection wasn't real, is not empty. It's not a void. It's not nothing happening. It's actually full of transformation that is happening beneath the surface, full of preparation that is occurring in the unseen realms, full of the kind of deep soul work that cannot happen in the distraction of constant contact, in the energy exchange of ongoing communication, in the comfort of knowing where you stand with each other at every moment. This silence is full of the recalibration that will allow your union to be everything it's meant to be. Not a codependent merging where you lose yourselves in each other, where your identities blur and you become half people who can't function independently. Not a relationship where one person is the sun and the other is the planet that orbits, existing only in relation to the other's light. But a conscious partnership where you enhance each other without diminishing yourselves, where you support each other's growth rather than feeling threatened by it, where you create something together, a third energy, a unified field that neither of you could create alone, because it requires the unique alchemy of your combined frequencies, your merged missions, your intertwined destinies. Have you felt this shift in yourself? Have you noticed the way you're no longer desperate for contact, no longer checking your phone every 5 minutes hoping for a message, no longer feeling like you're going to die if you don't hear from him, the way you're no longer scanning every interaction for hidden meaning, no longer analyzing every word choice and punctuation mark for clues about his feelings, no longer driving yourself crazy trying to decode what he meant when he said something perfectly straightforward, the way you're no longer trying to force or control or manipulate the connection into existence through manifestation techniques or energetic manipulation or strategic communication designed to get a specific response. This shift you're experiencing, this newfound peace and centeredness, is sovereignty. This is embodiment. This is you stepping into the version of yourself who doesn't need him to be whole, who doesn't require his validation to feel worthy, who doesn't depend on his presence to feel happy, but who would absolutely welcome him as a partner when he's ready, when he's done his work, when he can meet you at the level you're now operating from. And this shift in you, this reclamation of your power, this return to your center, is one of the most attractive things to the masculine. It's magnetic in a way that chasing never could be. Because here's what you need to understand about the healthy masculine. He doesn't want to be your savior. He doesn't want to be put on a pedestal as the one who rescues you from your life, or completes you, or makes you whole. He doesn't want to be responsible for your happiness, carrying the weight of your emotional state on his shoulders, feeling like your joy or despair depends entirely on his actions. That's too much pressure, and it's not the dynamic that allows for genuine partnership. He wants to be your equal, your partner, your match, someone who walks beside you, not ahead of you or behind you. And he can only be that when you're standing fully in your own light, rooted in your own power, clear about your own worth. The masculine is healing in silence, because silence is where the deepest transformation happens. This isn't about him ghosting you or playing games or being emotionally unavailable for the sake of it. This is about the fact that in the noise of the world, in the constant distraction of modern life, in the busyness that keeps us all running on the surface of our lives, he could continue to distract himself from what needs to be faced, to numb himself with work, substances, other relationships, entertainment, anything that keeps him from having to sit with the uncomfortable truth of his own inner landscape, to avoid the very things that are calling for his attention and integration. But in the silence, in the solitude, in the withdrawal from external stimulation and validation, there's nowhere to hide. The distractions lose their power. The numbing mechanisms stop working. He has to face himself in the mirror without filters or excuses. He has to feel the emotions he's been running from for years or even decades. The grief he never processed, the anger he never expressed, the fear he never acknowledged, the shame he's been carrying like a secret burden. He has to confront the wounds he's been carrying, the ones inflicted by his father, his mother, his past relationships, his society, his own choices. And while this process is deeply uncomfortable, while it feels like death sometimes, because in a way it is the death of the false self, it's also liberating. It's freedom, emerging from the rubble of everything he thought he had to be. Because every wound he heals is a weight lifted from his shoulders, from his heart, from his soul. Every pattern he releases is a door open to new possibilities, new ways of being, new expressions of his authentic self. Every truth he faces is a step toward freedom, toward the liberation that comes from no longer running, no longer hiding, no longer pretending to be something he's not. And with each step he takes on this journey, with each layer he peels back, with each truth he integrates, he moves closer to being the man who can meet you fully, who can love you deeply without fear of losing himself, who can hold space for the sacred union you're both being called into without feeling like he's drowning in intensity he's not ready for. He's becoming the man who can handle your light without needing to dim it, your power without feeling threatened by it, your depth without running from it. You're not imagining the peace you feel. You're not fooling yourself with false hope or spiritual delusion or wishful thinking disguised as intuition. What you're feeling is real. It's not your ego trying to make you feel better or your mind creating stories to avoid facing reality. It's the energetic confirmation that he is doing the work, that transformation is actually happening in him, that this silence is productive rather than destructive, that he is healing in ways you cannot see, but that you can feel in the energetic field you still share. That he is preparing himself to be the partner you deserve, and that your soul has been calling in. And while you cannot see the specifics of his journey, while you don't have access to the details of his daily struggles and victories and revelations, you can trust the knowing in your heart, not the fear in your mind, not the doubt that creeps in during your lowest moments, but the deep, unshakable knowing that exists beneath all the noise. The knowing that says he's changing. He's not the same person he was when he walked away, or when he pulled back, or when he created distance. He's evolving in real time. The knowing that says union is coming, not as a maybe or a hope or a possibility, but as an inevitability that's already been written in the stars, already been agreed upon by your souls. The knowing that says everything you've been through, every painful moment, every dark night of the soul, every time you thought you couldn't take another step, has been preparing you for this moment, for the reunion that is not a repeat of old patterns, not a return to what was, not a resurrection of the connection as it existed before, but a completely new beginning. A fresh start at a higher octave, a union that is built on the foundation of two healed people, rather than two wounded people looking for healing in each other. And when he emerges from this silence, when he's finally ready to step forward, when he's done enough of the inner work that he can show up differently, he will not be the same man who left. He cannot be because transformation has occurred. He will be softer in the ways that matter, with his armor down and his defenses lowered. More open to connection, to vulnerability, to the kind of intimacy that requires you to be seen fully. More honest about his feelings, his fears, his desires, his truth. More willing to be vulnerable even when it's scary, even when every conditioning in his body tells him to protect himself. More capable of holding the depth of connection that terrified him before. That made him run. That felt like it would consume him if he allowed himself to fully feel it. He will have integrated the lessons from his past, from his patterns, from the mistakes he made not just with you, but in all his relationships. Healed the wounds that were driving his behavior, that were making him reactive instead of responsive, that were keeping him trapped in cycles he didn't know how to break. Released the fears that were holding him hostage, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being trapped, the fear of losing himself, the fear of being truly seen and found wanting. And he will approach you not with the energy of someone who is still running from himself, still trying to escape his own shadow, still caught in the push-pull of his unhealed patterns, but with the energy of someone who has finally come home to himself, someone who has found peace in his own being, someone who knows who he is and what he wants and what he's capable of offering. And in that homecoming to himself, in that return to his own center, he will recognize something profound. He will recognize that you are not separate from his home, that you are not something external he has to reach for or attain or win. You are part of it. You are woven into the very fabric of what home feels like to his soul. You are the mirror that reflects back to him his own divinity, his own capacity for love, his own highest potential. The catalyst that activated his awakening, that set him on this path of transformation even when it was painful. The sacred partner who has been holding the frequency of love, the vibration of the union, while he learned how to hold it himself, while he developed the capacity to match that frequency. This is not about him saving you or you saving him. That's the old paradigm, the fairy tale that keeps us stuck in codependency and disempowerment. This is about both of you saving yourselves, both of you taking radical responsibility for your own healing, both of you choosing healing even when it's hard, even when it would be easier to stay asleep, even when consciousness brings pain before it brings peace. Both of you committing to growth as a non-negotiable, as a way of life, as the very purpose of your existence. Both of you stepping into the highest versions of yourselves, the versions your souls have always known you could become, so that when you come together, it's not from a place of lack, not from emptiness seeking to be filled, not from wounds seeking to be healed by another, but from a place of overflow. Two cups that are already full, that are brimming with self-love and self-worth and self-awareness, pouring into each other, sharing their abundance, creating something even more abundant. This is the union you've been waiting for. This is the partnership your soul has been calling in since before you were born. And it's closer than you think. Not years away or lifetimes away or dependent on 1,000 conditions being met. It's close because the work is being done right now, in this moment, in both of you simultaneously. So, beloved, let this be your reminder, your anchor, your truth to return to whenever doubt creeps in. You were never waiting for him. That was never what this journey was about, even though it felt like it, even though every fiber of your being seemed focused on his return. You were always waiting for yourself, waiting for the moment when you would fully claim your sovereignty, when you would stop giving your power away to his choices, or his timeline, or his readiness. Fully embody your worth, not as a concept you understand intellectually, but as a lived reality you feel in every cell. Fully trust the divine timing of your journey, releasing the need to control when and how things unfold. And now, as you stand in that truth, as you live from that place of wholeness, as you operate from the frequency of someone who is already complete, union does not just approach as something external coming toward you. It begins right now. It begins in the silence that is full of transformation, in the healing that is happening in both of you simultaneously, creating the energetic foundation for what's to come, in the transformation that is happening in both of you right now, in this very moment, whether you can see it or not. He is healing in silence, and your union is near. Not because you manifested it through desperate rituals, through trying to manipulate energy or force outcomes or control his free will, but because both of you have finally become ready for what your souls have always known was inevitable. What was written in the stars before you took your first breath in this lifetime. Ask yourself one final time and answer with brutal honesty. Am I living as the one who waits, passive and powerless, putting my life on hold for someone else's journey? Or am I living as the one who already knows, who trusts so deeply that the outcome is certain, that I can live fully in the present moment? Because the moment you choose, tell me in the comments, have you felt this unexplainable peace recently? Have you noticed the shift in your own energy as you stopped focusing on his journey and started honoring your own? Your insight may be the medicine another soul needs today. And remember, you are not alone on this path. We are all walking each other home,